Have you ever gone back and watched movies that you loved growing up, and within like 3 or 4 minutes, 5 tops, it just pulls you in, it grabs you, and you're hooked? And not because it's bigger, and not because it's faster or has a bigger budget, but because it feels like something where you're not watching a movie at all. It feels like you're just there. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ABA Pop Culture, and this is the start of something that I've been wanting to talk about for a little while here, because I think a lot of us feel this way, even if we don't stop to think about why we feel this when we watch old movies versus new movies. But there was a time, especially in the 70s and 80s and 90s, when movies just absolutely felt different. There's no way around it. They felt different. They looked different. They pulled you in and connected differently. And not because they were better across the board necessarily, though as time has told, they have stood the test of time more and they've become more iconic and more loved over time. But a lot of that comes from the fact that they were just realer, for a lack of a better word. And I don't mean true stories. I mean movies where people talked like real people, where places felt lived in, where moments didn't feel staged, orchestrated, and set up. They felt like you were watching something that you were more experiencing even than watching, not something that was constructed to try to make you feel a certain way. So today, we're going to talk about why that feeling existed in the first place. When I think about the big differences between movies then and movies now, the first thing I think of is the characters. They felt like people, not performances. So that's one of the biggest differences to me. It's that the actors didn't feel like they were always trying to impress you and look glamorous on camera, and even if they might have been, it didn't feel that way. They didn't come across that way. They felt like they were trying to be the person that they were acting like. If you think about the performances of that era, they weren't polished at all. They weren't, even when they were great performances, they weren't overly polished. They were rough around the edges. They talked over each other. They had awkward pauses. It would have been tough to be a sound guy because they talked over each other, but that's how people talk. And those moments weren't edited out. They were left in, because that's how people talk. And there's a looseness to it, a realism to it, a willingness to let scenes breathe. And when you watch those performances, you're not thinking about acting at all. You're just watching someone exist and bring this character that is this part of the story to life. And I think beyond that, lived in environments were a big part of it. The world building, as people will say now, that was a huge part of it. Movies then took place, everything around them felt like it had a history to it. Everything, the houses felt lived in, the streets, the sidewalks. I mean, you watch Rocky and he's really walking those streets. There's nothing fake about it. And they weren't designed for a shoot. They didn't say, hey, we'll green screen it in. It was real. Streets felt busy, imperfect, real, dirty, sweaty, grimy, nighttime with rain and kind of trash floating through the water and lights reflecting. Even something as simple as dinner or a bedroom, it didn't feel staged, it felt used. And that matters much more than people realize, even on a subconscious level when you're watching something, because when the world feels real, you believe everything happening inside of it. And that is the key to telling a great story and connecting with an audience. I think the other thing is movies from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they didn't rush big moments. This is a big one because movies used to be okay with just sitting in a moment. A conversation could last longer than you could expect. The character could just be quiet. They didn't always feel the need to either push the plot forward or to constantly be reiterating the plot because someone is watching their phone half the time. They didn't do that. A lot of story was told through looks between characters, dramatic pauses between characters, facial expressions, all of these visual cues that you had to be paying attention to watch. And because of that, you were given time to understand characters, feel tension, absorb what was happening. And today, a lot of movies are just moving too fast, and they're just constantly rehashing plot. They're taking these moments that are important and dramatic and serious and introspective, and they're undercutting them with quips and smart aleck comments and cynical comments. And those things just destroy everything that the actors have built in those moments. But back then, they barely processed timing because moments were actually given the weight that they deserved. And then the next one is one you're going to hear me harp on probably in several videos in this. And I'm sorry, I'm a writer first and foremost. I write movies. I've had movie scripts published. Dialogue. Listen, dialogue is so huge. And back then, it just sounded way more natural. Even when giant, larger-than-life action heroes were giving their one-liners, the reason they stuck out so bad as corny but memorable is because everything else was so naturalistic around it. If you go back then, the dialogue didn't feel written. It felt quoted. It felt like it was written to be spoken, like the way people talk. People interrupted each other. They trailed off. They got mixed up. Everything didn't land as a perfect line on perfect timing, and that's what made it believable. It didn't feel like, here's another line the audience is supposed to remember, and this is supposed to be epic. It actually felt like this is what a person would actually say right now. And I've often said, the best writers, even my own writing professor said he didn't know how I wrote dialogue so well and so fast. That was my strength, was dialogue and then description to make people visualize stuff. But dialogue first. And I said, I can't take credit for writing it because once I create the characters in my head, I don't make them say anything. Once I have the story in my head, I just watch the characters in my mind and I hear them talk and I just dictate what they say. Like I just write down what they say. I just type it out. That's it. I don't say, oh, it'd be so cool for them to say this in that moment, because that's not how people talk. And when you do that, you can take people right out of the scene. And too many writers today are trying to show how witty they are and intelligent and have their message push and everything with the perfect line at the perfect time. And it destroys all the realism because people just don't talk that way. And that brings me to the next thing, and that is imperfection was allowed. Everyone wasn't trying to be perfect. They weren't trying to check every box. They weren't trying to be politically correct or socially correct, or they were just trying to tell a story. So this might be the biggest one beyond dialogue. Movies used to be real because they didn't try to be perfect. Scenes were rough around the edges. Characters were rough around the edges. Stories were rough around the edges. Performances weren't always clean. Moments didn't always land neat and perfect and polished and happy for everyone. And that imperfection is what made them feel human. It made them feel real. Life is not perfectly structured. I don't know if you know that. Life is not always fair. It's not always politically correct. It's not always socially correct. It's not always anything for anyone. It's just not fair. And conversations didn't always resolve cleanly. And that was all reflected in movies of that time. People didn't always say or do the right thing. And older movies were not afraid to reflect that. And that made them very relatable. So then the shift came. You have to talk about what changed, because there has been a massive shift from it. Things started to change. Budgets and movies got bigger and out of control, faster, more polished, more controlled, more safety nets, stories and dialogue decided by AI at this point, or someone with no life experience that's told, hey, write a story and it needs to check this box, this box, this box, this box. And all they do is paint by numbers. And in a lot of ways, maybe people could consider that impressive, the amount they're churning out. But honestly, way more than impressive. Something is just fundamentally lost for the most part. Performances are tighter, overly polished. Movies are drained of color. They're drained of realism. They're drained of human, normal interaction. Dialogue might be sharper, but it's really just full of cynical sound bites and quips and things like that. Scenes might be more efficient and pacing might be better, but it doesn't feel realistic. And while some people might find that more entertaining, it definitely makes movies less real. It makes them less able to stand the test of time, find their audiences, and become legendary over time to where they are remembered, because life isn't about being efficient. It's just real, and it's going to happen. And why does it matter? Because this isn't just about nostalgia. This isn't just movies were better back then. It's about connection. The reason that movies stick with us is because they felt like something we've experienced, something we can relate to, a reflection of life, even if it's a heightened sense of it. You take something like Porky's or something like that that's so offensive today. It was a heightened sense of a real thing, that people could relate to and then laugh at how ridiculous we are as human beings sometimes. Conversations, though, relationships, moments in time, something familiar that we could connect to. And when movies tapped into that, they didn't just entertain you, they stayed with you. And that has been lost. That has changed. That has gone away. So what I'm going to do over the next few videos is exactly that. We're going to explore movies that didn't really feel like movies at all. Movies that felt like memories, experiences, real life unfolding, things that touched us, connected to us, different genres, different styles, but all with the same core feeling. So if you enjoyed that and you're interested in that, please hang around, like and subscribe. If you want to help support what we're doing here a little bit more, you can join my Patreon. The link is in the description. You'll get your name and lights on every single video, behind the scenes looks at my filmmaking, special members only videos, physical media reviews, and so much more. And everything helps the channel, and I sure do appreciate it. But until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye. I know.